Budget 2018 has dashed our hopes. Strong statements coming in from the Vice Chief of the Army, Lieutenant General Sarath to the Parliamentary Panel on Defence. CNBC TV 18 has accessed his oral deposition to the panel, in which he claims that the budget allocation for defence leaves them with a shortfall of over 12,000 crore rupees. Responding to his deposition, the Parliamentary Panel has said that it is aghast to note this dismal scenario. Bhan is here with details on this news break. Ritu, take us through the deposition that has been made and how exactly did the Parliamentary Panel respond to the comments?
Lieutenant General Sarath Chand went on to say that the marginal increase in budget estimates for capital acquisition for the army is barely, barely accounts for the inflation and doesn't cater to the tax liabilities of the army for the kind of weapon platforms that it is basically procuring. He goes on to say that there are 125 ongoing projects of the army as far as modernization is concerned, and there are already committed liabilities, and hence the kind of money that has been allocated for capital acquisition is absolutely not enough. He also talks about how there are 25 Make in India projects that the army was looking at for procuring indigenous weapon platforms. And as a result of the meager allocation that has been made for capital acquisition of the army, many of these projects may end up foreclosed. In fact, he's not the only one who has raised a red flag. Even the Navy representative, while deposing before the same panel, said, and I quote, there has been disparity over the last 3 years in modernization versus committed liability. The Parliamentary Panel has taken note of these comments and has said that the committee is aghast to note this dismal scenario, and it has directed the Finance Ministry to increase or pump up the allocation for Army, Navy and Air Force as far as capital acquisition is concerned. This a scenario has happened because there is a shortfall of at least 17,557 crore with the army as far as the kind of projected cost that it had as far as new weapon systems are concerned, and the kind of allocation that it got. For Navy, the shortfall is around rupees 15,691 crore, while for the Indian Air Force, it is a whopping 41,924 crores. With that, it's back to you.
Okay, fair enough, Ritu. Thanks for joining in with that. But let's take this further. We'll cut across to Shereen Bhan, who has a special guest with her. Shereen, take it away.
Well, thanks very much. To take this conversation forward, joining us now is Manu, Pubby, Deputy Editor of ThePrint, tracks the defence sector very closely. Manu, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. We were just taking our viewers through what the Parliamentary Panel says, what the Vice Chief of the Army Staff has said in his oral deposition. But it's not just the Army. For the benefit of our viewers, let me also point out what the Navy has said. And I'm again quoting from the report. The representatives of Navy also enunciated the impact of low allocations of the capital budget for the Navy, constrained progress of new schemes and the ability to conclude contracts, delay in induction of critical capabilities and the attendant cost overruns, impact on progress of infrastructure projects, and the mitigation of shortage of accommodation and setback to the pace of modernization of the Indian Navy. Are you surprised, Manu? You track this very closely. Are you surprised to see what the Parliamentary Panel has noted and what the services have in fact deposed in front of the panel?
No, see, this problem has been festering for a while, but it is very interesting that the armed forces now have come out in public and talked about it. In the past few years, defense allocations have been progressively reduced, but this time around we seem to have come to a situation, we are almost at the brink of disaster here. Not having adequate money to pay for committed liabilities basically means that the armed forces should be prepared to face litigation or to pay fines to foreign companies with which they have already made purchases in the past. So the Vice Chief bringing it up in such strong words to the panel suggests that they are at the very brink of a catastrophic situation where weapons which have been bought may not even be delivered because you're not going to pay money for them.
I want to take that forward, and one of the other issues that the committee notes, and again I quote from the Parliamentary Panel's conclusions, the committee is aghast to note the dismal scenario where the representatives of the services have themselves frankly explained the negative repercussions on our defence preparedness due to inadequate allocation in the capital head. Therefore, the committee fervently urges the Ministry of Defence to ensure that the allocation to the services be suitably enhanced at the revised estimate stage so as to enable our services services to meet the requirement of the highest level of operational readiness. The committee, in wake of recent attacks on military stations and accommodations, recommend that separate budget may be provided to the services to ensure security of military establishments. So while capital allocation has been on the decline, the committee now seems to be pointing towards the need for a separate fund, Manu, when it comes to securitizing our key installations.
That is correct, and you know what, there has been a provision for that in the sense that the Vice Chief is empowered to take these decisions, but again the budget has not been given to him. So even though he can technically make those purchases, because the money is not there, he cannot. And not just that, I think the problem is even beyond just the army camps that are there. See, the situation on both Pakistan and China borders is tense. And I think the panel has also been told that there's a very real possibility of a two-front conflict. So to prepare for that, also I think the army believes the funds are insufficient as of now.
Yes, that is very, very clear from the deposition that the army has made to the parliamentary panel. But Manu, you know, I want to talk about the Make in India initiative, because this is something that you've been writing about as well. And again, I go back to what the Vice Chief has said. We in the army have identified as many as 25 projects for Make in India. However, there is not adequate budget to support this, as a result of which many of these may end up foreclosed. And then they also talk about strategic partnership, again, which was a policy initiative that was lauded by both the defense sector as well as foreign manufacturers. But so far, nothing much has progressed, whether it's Make in India or FDI for Make in India in the defense sector.
Yeah, you know, a common misnomer is that Make in India means lesser budgets for weapon buys. That's totally the opposite in the defense sector. In the initial few years, for Make in India to give orders to the private sector, you need more money, because you know, it will be more expensive to buy from Indian companies which don't have you know, the scales or the resources to invest in it. So if the budgets are reduced, in fact, Army or the Air Force and the Navy will go in for more imports, because it is simply cheaper to buy products from abroad. So yes, Make in India projects which have been identified have not taken off. In fact, from my recollection, in the past 3 to 4 years, not even a single major contract has gone to the private sector. Most of these contracts have gone to PSUs, of course, as has been the case in the past. So how does the budget play out? If you're not allocated enough money and you only have to pay the PSU, you can take a loan from them, or you can park the money away and you can ask them for deferred payments. But when it comes to the private sector, they will demand payments. So you can't defer a payment to a private company. So that is one reason why there's not enough money. So the private sector is not given contracts. Even if they are given contracts, they will not, you know, just give them a loan waiver or a 1-year lenient payment. So this lack of funds and Make in India not happening is actually extremely correlated.
Okay, you know, Manu, let me end then, and we've got very little time, so let me end then by asking you what to your mind stands out to you. You know, the fact of the matter is that we've actually seen the capital allocation budget decline, so that perhaps is not unusual by itself. But in what you've heard so far, in the depositions made by the armed forces to the parliamentary panel and the conclusions that the committee has arrived at, what to your mind stands out?
So, see, what stands out to my mind straight away is that the army has said that, you know, post the surgical strikes and post the conflict on the China border, the Doklam standoff, the army bought some emergency purchases. They bought some emergency equipment, would have been guns and ammunition, and they've told the panel that we don't have money to pay for that. So that, to my mind, stands out that, you know, those are the most critical security implications or concerns for India, and if the budget is not even adequate to pay for things to counter that, then we are staring at a bit of a crisis as far as the defense budget is concerned.
We are staring at a bit of a crisis. All right, Manu, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us. That is the big story that broke right here on CNBC TV 18 first. We will, of course, continue to bring you more comments and more opinion on the implications of what we've just heard. But for now, back to you, Kritika.